All right, good morning. One of the things Kathy came in and talked about was buyer's agency. And this has become it's going to become a bigger and bigger topic in the, I think, months and also the years to come. One of the things that it is going to be talking about is commissions are going to be structured a little bit differently. And some people are already seeing where they're getting compressed because of the competition with agents. We have so many agents in the market now that some people are saying, well, I'll do it for, you pay the buyers, whatever you want to pay them, and I'll do it for 1.5% for your listing. Because they're just trying to get some money out of it. Okay. And it's really been kind of rampant. And then one of the things that's happening now is with the Department of Justice bringing the lawsuit onto the National Association of Realtors and also some of the big franchises such as Keller Williams, Remax, EXP, so on and so forth. And they said that they have cost sellers millions of dollars because they were making them pay the buyers, and they shouldn't have been doing that. And when you look at it, the buyer paid the same amount. If he's going to sit there and pay it to the seller and then the seller pays it to the agent, or he pays it to the agent directly, it's the same. Okay. But one of the things we had is our clear cooperation agreement here in Tennessee, which means that on the MLS, we list on the MLS what we're going to be paying for a commission to the agent that brings the buyer. Okay. Well, the largest MLS, Bright MLS in the country, recently announced agents may list properties and put 0 in for buyer compensation. Okay. Now, Bright MLS had allowed to put only $1 in for buyer's compensation before this. They were kind of testing the waters. And one of the things that's important about is many agents depend on the listing agents to provide their commission. And they will say something like, it doesn't cost you anything because the seller pays my commission. And it's actually one of the scripts I kind of use too when I get the buyer's agency signed. But one thing you can never do is say that as a buyer's agent, my services to you are free. That is a direct violation of TREC rules. And you can be levied fines or even lose your license. We have one agent that has been putting signs around saying, I will represent you for free. And he's got signs up, and it has caused a huge, huge deal. So with a lot of complaints, and also he's in a lot of trouble with TREC right now because it's very specific that you cannot use the word free. The next thing it says, buyer compensation could become a separate line item on the alter or closing statement for the buyer to pay. Because if sellers are not going to sit there and give a commission to the agent bringing the buyer, then what's going to happen is the buyer is going to say, all right, Mr. Buyer, I'm representing you for X amount. These are the list of services and my value proposition to you, and you will pay me this. And some buyers actually say, well, they're only giving us 2%, so you're responsible for the other 1%. If it's a 3% commission, okay? Because there's no set commission to represent someone. So then it would be—
And that's in our agreement, right?
Mm-hmm. So knowing what your agreement says is really going to be critical. After our meeting yesterday, I got with Kurt, and Kurt and I are doing a meeting next week to come up with some strategies to train our agents here, and also some things that we need to be looking at to make certain that our agents are well prepared and ready for this. Many agents may leave the business because of this, because they don't know how to negotiate a commission. They've just always been waiting on the listing agent to pay them whatever they're going to get. So this is going to be a huge deal. And there's many agents that do not get a buyer's agreement signed before they start showing property. In some states, it is illegal to show a property without having a buyer's agreement signed because you have to have agency. And we even had a panel where they discussed it, and the brokers were disagreed. 2 of the brokers said, yep, we always tell them to get the buyer's agency signed first. And one says, well, it doesn't matter. So the brokers aren't even on the same page with it. And to have the legislature pass a law on making certain that it's done beforehand, I don't think it's going to happen. So it's going to come down to us. So some of the questions is what happens if the listing agent does not pay the buyer's agent? If you put down 0 commission, which it could go to, how's that going to impact you? If you've got a buyer's agreement signed, you will have to tell them, says, what's happened here is they have decided to try to make it as low cost to them, which essentially the listing agent is essentially hiding the fact that there's a buyer's commission involved. So normally it would be listed in the price, and now they're listing it separately. So you're still paying my commission fee, only it's not going to be in the mortgage part of it. Okay. The other thing, if it's a VA loan, say you're representing a VA buyer and they're saying that they're going to pay 0, VA does not allow veterans to pay fees. So how do we collect it from a VA buyer?
Are we working for free for VA then?
No, we don't want to work for free, because if we don't collect the commission, our E&O insurance many times will not cover us. So these are some of the questions we have, or how do we structure these deals where they're going to work? Another one is, can we negotiate the commission before the offer made if listed at 0 or only $1? And in the state of Tennessee, you cannot negotiate the commission. Whatever is in the MLS is what they're paying. So now it becomes something, okay, well, if it's something where they're not qualified for the loan, and that's coming up here, what does the approval process for buyers to have enough cash on hand? Because now that's not just for the loan down payment and the loan fees, but they also have to have all the money to pay their buyer's commission too, because you can't roll that into the mortgage. They won't loan you to pay a commission to an agent. Now, they've always done it before because it was kind of lost or hidden. When you paid the seller paid the listing agent, and the listing agent paid the buyer's agent. Okay, so now it can help hit your approval process to even get your loan to go through by doing this.
Is
So it
this
may be
even realistic? Like, I
What's that?
guess I'm confused on like how they're trying to move forward with this.
This is a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit. And the Department of Justice, let me give you some history on it. You guys can go back and read up on it. The Department of Justice had an agreement with the National Association of Realtors and the others on this lawsuit, saying that sellers were overcharged because millions of dollars, because they were being charged the buyer's fee, and they shouldn't have had to pay that. Well, they wouldn't have got as much money either. That's the whole point that a lot of people made, and that's why they came up with this settlement. Well, when the Biden administration took over, the Department of Justice went back and says, we're going to withdraw our agreement with the National Association of Realtors, which the Department of Justice normally does not do. And they took the Department of Justice to court saying, hey, we had an agreement and now you're reneging on it. And the court said, no, they can do that. So now this case is moving forward. So what's happening is Keller Williams is on the hook for potentially billions of dollars, millions of dollars at the very least, and so are all the other franchises. And it falls down to the brokerages and the MLSs. Well, the MLSs don't want to be involved in the suit because they don't have that kind of money, because they're not getting the GCI from the commissions. So they want to essentially excuse themselves from the talks at all. And that's why they're saying, well, you say I have to post what they're paying the buyer's agent, because that's a state law. But if it's something where I'm letting you put 0, then I'm out, because you can't sue me anymore, because I said that we were going to do 0. And what everybody's doing is kind of lining up saying, all right, how do we still make this work right? We give great representation to people buying homes, so that it's just not falls down to there's no representation on home buying. Because this is a big deal. When you buy a home, I mean, it can cost the homeowner thousands of dollars if they buy the wrong home and they haven't gone through the due diligence, or they could lose in negotiations. Do you guys understand that part? Does that answer your question, Carly?
I guess I'm just not really understanding what our responsibility is moving forward, like what conversations we need to be having with clients, both on the
Perfect.
seller and buyer side. Like, do I need to be
We're not doing
a little
anything
bit
differently
more?
yet, but what I want to do is the things that we're going to talk to yet is things that we can do to help. Okay, when we get into that
Okay.
situation, if that comes about. And I've got several things. One is market knowledge. The buyer's agent has to stay updated on local real estate market trends for property values, inventory levels, neighborhood dynamics, and they need to provide this insight. Now you're showing real value to your client. Okay, it's a tangible thing. You're just not writing an offer. You've actually viewed properties, you know about the market, you know what it's doing. And that's why we send out in our newsletter every week as far as how many properties are on the market, what's been listed, what's sold. So you can see that trend if it's going up, down, how many days on market it's been. So you're up to date on that. The other is helping identify with the property search. And it could be using the networks, databases, market expertise to find the right properties for them. And then property showings. I tell you what, I've actually had agents call me for a one-day code, and they were just going to give the code to their buyer to go in and look at it, and they weren't going to show up. Okay. And Kurt, you heard Kurt say that that happened to him, where it was just the buyer showed up and the agents didn't. And that's why Kurt says, do not give out one-day codes anymore. If you've got a listing, do not do it. And that makes a huge difference because you're supposed to facilitate the showing, and you're not supposed to just look at how pretty the place is, but what are some potential areas that you're going to need to give information about that could be potential drawbacks to the property. The other one is negotiation. And this is one of the most critical areas. And one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to search. There are several different negotiation certifications you can get. One is called RENE, R-E-N-E, which is Real Estate Negotiation Expert. And they're going to be offering WCAR. I'm going to check with Jolene and see if we can't get a negotiation certification for all the place agents. So again, that's something that you can tout that you're a certified negotiation expert. And there's some other ones out there too, which are CE classes that you can take. Another is comparative market analysis, and provide this with people so that they know what's going on in that area. And again, with ours, if they're looking at a property, one of the things you can do very quickly is just create a new CMA with Brivity CMA, type in the address, pull it up, and it'll show what's been sold and hasn't sold in the area. And you can send that to your client. Another is access to off-property listings. And again, one of the things I'm going to mention to Kurt is we probably want to have a list of those or a database of ones in the office here, things that we could share internally, which would not violate any MLS rules. Another one is contract assistance. Okay, helping clients understand, navigate the intricacies of a real estate contract. If I'm a buyer, or if I'm a listing agent and I have a buyer says, well, I don't want to pay the buyer's fee, so will you write up both sides of it? I'll say, sure, but I'm representing the seller. You're going to be without representation. You need to sign here. Well, that's actually a detriment for them because they don't know what they can and can't ask for. And when they go through in the inspection and ask me questions, I'm going to say, you know, I don't think that's unreasonable because I'm looking out for my seller. I'm not looking out for the buyer. But we need to know about the contracts as far as what it does obligate people towards, as far as, well, you did not tell me what you wanted in time for your inspection. So you're accepting the property as is. If you want to withdraw, you lose your earnest money of $10,000 or whatever amount it is. Okay. The other is coordination of inspections. Okay. We recommend great home inspectors, coordinate property inspections, any potential issues. We help them with the due diligence aspect of it too. The history, neighborhood amenities, potential problems with HOA. If they're wanting to rent the property, making certain that we help them pull up the CCRs, look through it, make certain that rentals are allowed. And if there is a waiting list for rentals, we know about that. If it's a condo or townhome, we take a look and see what the cash on hand for the townhome or condo association is to make sure they're well funded. But those are all different things that we as agents do. Others, financing guidance. And you guys can, as we get these stories, we want to make certain that we share them. Like Jana could tell one about her buyers with Rory. I mean, I doubt if that deal would have gone through if it had not been for Rory and his team. So again, having those right people makes a huge difference. Also, escrow and closing support, making certain we help them navigate those aspects of it. And one of the things we try to talk about on our team is if the seller has owned the property for less than 10 years, the title company can use that title policy to write the policy off of, saving up to 30% for the buyer. Another is problem solving when unexpected challenges arise, like Annalise did with her seller on 1404 Market Square. I mean, that was just a headache when it got down to closing and also the transfer of it. And she did a great job going through that process. It appraised fine, which was great, but the inspection, she was able to negotiate that. Also, she was able to negotiate a problematic seller. And then also, even after the day of closing, she had not cleaned out the house. She negotiated that too. That's part of our problem solving. That's what we get paid to do. Local area knowledge too. This is one where insight about schools, transportation, community services, neighborhood specific. The other one is time saving. We're going to handle all these various tasks that they don't see. And that's why brevity is so important, because it's telling them what task we're accomplishing for them. Okay. Objective advice. And this is where we become that consultant, where we provide objective advice based on expertise, helping clients make rational decisions and avoid emotional pitfalls. Okay. And then the continuous support. Now, this is one that we're going to excel at even after the purchase, as we keep building our referral network. And also with Envoy, they're getting closer to every time a mortgage statement will come out for your buyer, it's going to have your picture on it to show that you were the agent for them. That's really cool. And then if they want services, they're going to have a place where they can go. If it's home automation, if it's warranties, those type things, we're going to have all those services for our clients. One other thing is becoming good at your scripts. And what I mean by that is when you have your buyer's agency sign and explaining what the buyer agency says and what that means to your clients. Those two are going to be really key to what's coming up on this thing, to make certain that you're getting paid when you represent buyers, and also working out with our buyers, our mortgage companies, as far as what they can do to make certain that it's going to follow through and get the loan approved, so that we can still have maybe the buyer's agency's fee in there. So we can work that out too. But those are all the different things that are coming up on this. So now, one of the things, remember, this change may or may not come, but we want to be ready in any event. Okay. Be knowledgeable about the market. You want to sharpen your negotiable skills and get a certification. Also have some great vendors to save your clients money and creative ways to craft deals. Okay. What kind of questions do you have on that?
So essentially, the buyers can end up having to pay thousands of dollars out of pocket for us to represent them.
Correct. And I think an after effect of that would be is a lot of people that would not offer some of those values that we just talked about, and such as neighborhood expertise, negotiation. They're not going to be able to sell something because they can't navigate those tracks to get paid, and they're going to fall out of the market.
Well, it's not, it just doesn't, like I said earlier, it just doesn't feel realistic. Like, why would I go through all that effort for nothing, essentially? And
Exactly right.
you know, I'm already negotiating with sellers, whether or not we're going to list, or I'm writing up a contract or anything like that. And then I have to turn around and negotiate with the buyers.
Well, you're going to do that when you do the buyer's agreement. Some people aren't even sending the buyer's agreement over until after the contract's accepted. And we had, what was it, 14 at our professional development committee yesterday. And when it was polled, we had probably about 30%, 40% of the agents saying that they get it signed afterwards, or they don't have to have a buyer's agreement before they start showing properties. And there's other brokers that you cannot show a property unless you have a buyer's agency signed here in Tennessee, in Nashville. I mean, they do not allow their agents to show anything without that buyer's agency being signed.
Okay, well, I'd always been taught since I started that,
Mhm.
you know, you always get a buyer's agreement signed before you show property. And that you also have conversation with them about, them being willing to pay your commission in case, the sellers, did not. I mean, especially for sale by owners and things like that,
Mhm.
conversations we have anyways.
Correct. But a lot of people are not having those conversations because, again, it's one of those things where they feel like it's a difficult conversation. It's just part of the business aspect of it. Okay,
Wes,
go ahead.
hi. What are options if, so we sign the buyer agreement,
Mhm.
we have 3% on that buyer agreement, and then someone only offers 1 or 2%. How do we get paid? If they're willing, because they can't just hand us that money. Is it
Mhm.
we go into the at closing, just have a credit?
Yeah, it'd be a separate line
I know
item.
we're
You're gonna-
limited.
You'd see a separate line item being paid to Keller Williams, but it would be on the buyer side, not the seller side. And again, that would be something you would negotiate and take a look, what's that look like? And again, having that conversation up front will help out. And that's the part that we need to make certain is that we're crafting those scripts correctly.
And that's, and we go back to, if like at closing, they're like, well, I didn't say that, then we go back to the listing agreement
The
or
buyer's
the
agreement.
buyer
Mhm.
agreement that had it on there.
Right.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then when we show an MLS, you know, we may circle what the commission rate is for what they're gonna be paying us. The other thing we could do is we could talk to the seller and say, you know, we would be able to offer this much if you paid this part of the in the compensation agreement. Because she cannot borrow over this amount. She just doesn't have the cash on hand to do it. Or he doesn't have the cash on hand to do it. To pay my fee in that.
Right.
This
in
would
the,
essentially just be a pass through, but that way he could put it in the mortgage and then everything would be fine.
yeah. And so Kurt seems like he's like, hey, whatever's on the MLS, that's, you can't negotiate, or he's talked about that some.
Mhm.
But that seems like what we're talking about is that very thing, is we're negotiating at the compensation agreement. So is that allowed for us to be able to do that?